All right, we're rolling.
Okay, all right. We're here with Giants relief pitcher John Brebbia. John, to start off, just let it out there. We've been asking guys who the funniest guy in the locker room is, and your name comes up about 80 to 90% of the time.
About 85.
Yeah. So, what do you attribute that to? What you just like to keep things light, or?
I attribute it to playing with a team full of liars. I take this very seriously. This is not a joke. This is not a game. This is my life. So clearly they know that. And they're trying to poke fun at me because they like to keep it loose and light. That's not me. That's not my style. I'm hard-nosed all the time.
Following up on that question.
I almost got through that.
Yeah. I was actually going to say, so, okay, asking everyone who the funniest guy in the locker room is, this is not a dig at anybody, but, like, who would you say is the most, like, serious business kind of guy, business-only kind of guy?
You know what? I'm going to have to look around at different lockers. Because I don't know. I mean,
everyone's pretty chill.
Yeah, there's no one that strikes me as, like, not having both sides of, like, being able to relax and breathe and hang out, and also being highly competitive and being serious and pushing the game aggressively. So I don't know. That's a really good question. We'll have to keep tabs on it, I think, this year.
All right. So when do you start the beard? Is it the day you arrive to camp, or? Yes.
So in the past, however many years it's been now, whenever game one of the regular season is for the team that I'm on the roster of, I will clean shave for that game, and then I will not shave the rest of the season.
So you'll shave in New York then?
If that is the roster I am on, yes.
Yeah. I mean, in New York. I mean,
as a Giant in New York, yes. If I make the team and we are playing the Yankees and I'm there, yes, that's my shave.
I think
they're going to think you're trying to audition. The way they clean it up.
Maybe started in spring training. So we were having some fun the other day. We were talking to Lamont Wade, and we asked him, "You have any superstitions?" Because I said, when I played ball, if I had a good game.
Back in T-ball.
Back in T-ball. So I would, not change my socks or whatever it was. And Lamont goes, "Yeah, that's it. That's mine." He says, "I don't change my socks if I get a hit, or everything's the same." Yeah. He goes, and Ryan said, "What about shaving?" He says, "I don't shave." I said, "So if you get hot and you go on a big long hitting streak, you could look like Brebbia?" And he said,
"That's the goal.
That's the goal."
I think he would power past me. I mean, if he let his mustache ride for 2 months, oh man,
oh,
that would be see his face anymore. That'd be great.
Yeah, he'd be like Yosemite Sam.
Yeah, he would be. Oh my gosh, that'd be awesome.
So one more call out we got to bring up. So we had like a long Sable actually came on our show, and we were just messing around, and he said when he was talking about you, I was like, oh, what is it kind of about him? And I was like, is he kind of one of those guys that are, it's not necessarily what you say, but just kind of the energy, whatnot. He said, like, one of the quirkiest things about you is that you answer to email more than you answer to text.
He said he was a great texter.
Oh, yeah. And that you got you got the reminders on your phone that like keep popping up, and that's so relatable.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about a text message that just doesn't. I just don't care about them. They just don't feel important. I don't know if it's because like texting wasn't a popular thing maybe until I was in high school, and it just never really lasted. Like I already had my opinions formed about how to communicate. But there's something about a text message where I'm like, that's not important. It doesn't matter. And I either don't hear it because my phone's not around me, or I just don't care. But an email stands out. An email is like, this is a bill, this is something, this is a reminder about like from some important thing. And so I just never got on the text train. I mean, I will, but it'll like, if you have a question for me, make sure I have 3 to 5 days to answer.
3 to 5 business days.
Yeah. Whereas email's generally a little quicker. It's not like it's fast, but it's quicker. Yeah.
So I'm really bad at responding to text as well. So is part of it like, for me, sometimes I'll look at the text, and even maybe it's funny, maybe I'll chuckle, and it's like, in my brain, I'm like, okay, yeah, I just read the text. I kind of even maybe responded in my mind, but then just never said. Do you
That's
ever
why you
have
never
that?
answer me, man.
There's plenty of times where it's just like, yeah, that's great.
Or it's
how
future
valuable
John.
is me responding to it, and there doesn't add value to the conversation, but it does give like a hey, I hear you thing, which is important, I guess. But
The last thing on texting, I'll let you jump in. I started dating my girlfriend in college, freshman year of college, 19, and I'm 27 now. But I said from the beginning with her, because I was like, I think she might be the one, but I'm setting the precedent that I'm going to be a bad communicator, because then she can never get mad at me for it's like kind of and so
it can only go up
as long as because you're now known as a guy like that, and so people kind of cut you slack because it's like that's just Brebbia.
It's just Brebbia. He's a bad guy. It's fine. He's always like that. He's always been horrible. That's man. I would like it to change, but I also don't care enough to actively try and change it, So it's just one of those tricky things where I hope someone doesn't hold it against me too hard.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, just some actual baseball questions, because you are a baseball player, right?
Sometimes. Yes. Only sometimes.
You had Tommy John, 2-3 years ago?
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
And so it took, what did it take, 18 months, 20 months to feel like back to 100%?
Yeah, I think it was probably 2 off seasons worth.
Okay.
I probably was ended up 16 to 18 months somewhere in there, where you feel like you kind of did beforehand. You can recover the same, you maybe soar the same way or something like that. Yeah, in between that, it was just kind of a coin flip. I guess it'll be interesting. Let's see how we feel.
Yeah. Now, a lot of guys increase velocity. Did you feel a difference 18 months, 20 months out? Like, wow, my arm feels like stronger than it ever has.
It depends. If I threw my first year back from Tommy John, throwing back-to-back days, definitely wasn't of a benefit to anyone, myself or the team. And you could see it, one of the really obvious ways was in velocity. If I had a handful of days off, it looked like normal velocity, and then the next day it's like 88, 91. So then didn't feel great, or it didn't feel strong. But then it wasn't so much a increase in velocity. The following year, it was more of a sustainable velocity. So I could be 94 miles an hour one day, and then be able to do it again the next day, where I did feel stronger that way. So the ceiling didn't go anywhere, but hopefully the floor got a little higher.
Now, a lot of guys that pitch, they growing up, they were not only pitchers, but they were kind of like the star of the team in other places, shortstop or power hitter. Did you play a position in high school?
Yeah, played a little shortstop. Played some moved to Florida, and then played first base, more first base than anything else. Tried to swing it as best as I could, had a lot of fun doing it, but not tremendously successful.
So have you gone to show Crawford how it's done, maybe
all the time.
Give him some tips at shortstop?
I've been filming a video series, a docu-series about how to really get around the ball and how to pitch it to second. He's obviously been watching because he's really good out there, so I will take all the credit for that because it was my doing. So I'm really proud of him.
That's good. That's good. I mean, I figured he would take tips from a guy that played it in high school.
I told him, I was like, hey, it's been 16 years, but I can catch a baseball. I'll have a couple bounces. And I've really taken him under my wing that way. And you can tell that he's working hard and doing it the right way.
Okay, good. Now, do you have a memorable moment in your career that stands out, when
you peaked?
I mean, just like a highlight of your career, whether
Also
it be
high school.
a particular game, punching somebody out, or closing a game. Which one of your most memorable moments?
I mean, the things that always stand out are the very first game that you get to play in. Actually, the very first game that I didn't get to play in, just the first game I wore a uniform, was pretty memorable. And then actually getting to pitch the next day, I feel like I'll never forget that. First playoff game, or I guess first handful of playoff appearances is also memorable.
That was with St. Louis?
That was with St. Louis, yeah. and then being a part of the 21 season, and I contributed a negative amount of value. So the outings, it's funny enough, the outings that I did have were like less than 2 runs scored. I remember those. It's like, oh my gosh, I think I may have helped. Like, this was one game I didn't blow, so that's good. They got 107 wins out of it. But yeah, it's a lot of times it ends up being those big, close, high leverage games that are more memorable than others. But I think your first outing is always the best.
So I've got a last question because 10 minutes. 10 minutes. You've been gracious with your time. Okay, we were just talking to a couple relievers earlier about like the concept of you never quite know like if you're going to go in that day or not. Are you a big caffeine guy in the bullpen?
Yes and no. I'm a big caffeine guy before 2 p.m. I love my morning cup of coffee, and then depending on what kind of travel we've had, depending on if I'm like, oh boy, we got a bullpen day today, I'm probably going to throw, then I may do a little pregame caffeine kick, but generally I try and stay away from it.
Okay, so you're not slam. That's like, I know people like slam Red Bulls out there, and my question for them was like, dude, like what do you do if you just don't even get in the game? Do you have to go work out to like, you're just so amped up?
I'm not sure if I've ever had a pregame coffee and then not had to go. If I had a pregame coffee and didn't have to go in, I was tired enough to be able to fall asleep that night anyway.
Nice.
So that was, I probably didn't need to do much, but I try and avoid it as best I can because I do value a good night's sleep, as much as I possibly can, and the caffeine does not help with that. Not at 7 o'clock at night.
I can relate as a podcaster,
Yeah.
Being out in all the different stadiums and stuff, is there one bullpen out there that just like rocks, that stands out above the others?
I always think it depends on the team you're playing for and the team that hates that team the most. So being here in San Francisco, I actually really like our bullpen because it's exposed to a large section. I like being exposed to large sections of the crowd because I love when people yell at you. It's just fun. It's like it's this completely inappropriate part of civilization. It's completely appropriate once you buy a ticket and go to a game. I think that's hysterical. Where you can just shout at someone. It's really fun.
What's the funniest thing
therapeutic.
that stands out to you that a fan said, and did you interact with them?
I'm a huge fan of a really simple, classic, to the point, you suck. Because it's so applicable. You can say it at any point, and it's just like, I don't know, it's short and sweet, and hey, you suck.
Well,
That's great.
What hurts more, the you suck or like, hey Brebbia, you're slightly below average? It's something you really got to think about, and you're just like, wow.
No one's ever given me so much credit to only be slightly below average, so I couldn't exactly relate to that. But yeah, I don't know. I'll have to keep my ears peeled for it more this year. But it's always fun going to playing for the Giants, going to LA. It's a blast because they hate you, and it's fun to hear and interact. And people are mostly good people where you go. If you're a jerk to them, they're a jerk back. Which is normal. But
did you ever have fun with it?
It happens all the time. Yeah, and sometimes they do actually hate you, and it's like, oh, okay, let's ignore that person.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's good natured. You get to you get to create an experience with someone, and it's a lot of fun. Being in St. Louis, it was going to Chicago. That was the same way. Their bullpen was indoors, but you'd walk out to the thing, and people in the stands, all the shirtless fans in the stands are pointing at you, telling you suck or something like that. It was always fun. So
yeah, is that at the Cubs? Does it feel like you're pitching in preseason clubhouse or something down? You're kind of hidden and you're in the dark. I mean, it looks like a dungeon or something.
At first, it feels like a batting cage, but once you start, when you're not warming up, when you're just sitting in there, it's like, oh yeah, this does kind of feel like I'm down in the dugout, behind the dugout in the batting tunnel or something like that. But once the phone rings and it's your situation, you forget about all that stuff and it's just a regular day. You just getting loose, and the pop is really loud because the walls and ceiling.
You could stay for my question.
Yeah, well, I would love to hear your questions.
Yeah, we appreciate your time, John.
Yeah, of course.
And we're going to let the doctor
But you
ask you
said
some
you-
questions.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. I'd love to listen.
How are you?
Yeah, nice to see you.
I've got some really good questions for you.
Okay,
So,
can't wait.
I'm a pediatrician at Stanford at the Children's Hospital.
Okay,
Try to be out
excellent.
of your way.
Yeah.
And so I'm working on trying to prevent arm injuries in pitchers
Okay.
in high school kids and college kids. And obviously you're a man of the world. So the first question I have is, you have advice for the young players, for let's say you're a high school pitcher, of what you can do to avoid a major injury like a Tommy John?
Man, I can take a stab at a piece of advice. I feel like not having a background in medicine or anatomy or physiology or anything that would be important for that. I have always personally felt better sweating before I did any baseball activities, moving around, stretching the high knees, whatever it may be. I love physically warming up my body to get a higher temperature. I'd like to think that helps. I hope it does, or else I've wasted a lot of time. But that would be. If that sounds good to you, then that's what I would say.
So there's a different question, which is some of the other players have told me that, and managers also have said, you probably shouldn't be pitching year round.
Yeah, I think that's was it John Smoltz that gave
Smoltz. He did that.
Was it his Hall of Fame speech?
It was his Hall of Fame speech.
Yeah, I remember hearing that and thinking like that's a heck of a platform to talk about. Pitch, whatever it may be, pitch counts, pitch restrictions, pitch scheduling. That passes the gut check. That if you're throwing 12 months out of the year, if you're going to a showcase and every other month, that's a lot of stress and a lot of strain. Fortunately, I grew up in Massachusetts, so we automatically had to take off the winter months because it was snowing outside.
Right, Sean Mania was also saying that he grew up in Indiana, so in the off-season he played basketball. He wasn't playing doing sports year-round. And then I think Bud Black, which is another good one. So when he was a pitcher, he lived in Oregon, and so it rained a lot, and so he recommended doing other sports other than baseball for him. So you didn't pitch year-round.
No, not until probably. And even then, it wasn't year round, but not until I was maybe a senior in high school or even in college, where it just became more. I was throwing more, but it still wasn't year round. And I, definitely attributing that to not being able to throw is great. Just kind of a built-in break is awesome. I would imagine that plays a huge role too, because it does here. We throw all season, and we need a break at the end.
And then club teams, your thoughts about that for young kids?
Just like everything else, there's probably some where it's a great experience and you get a lot of good out of it, and there's probably some where you don't get it, where it may be a negative experience. You hope that there's more positive than negative. But if physical preparation and however you're measuring stress and capacity for stress, if that is all kept in line, in theory it shouldn't matter what you call the team or the league or whatever you're doing, because it should all be based on how much you're playing.
And these guys already asked you good questions, so that in terms of Tommy John and so forth for you, but how do you think the Giants have handled that previous injury that you had, in terms of watching your pitching and how much you do and so forth?
Yeah, I think it's been fantastic. Either rehab, coming out of rehab, and non-rehab, I think they're constantly thinking, constantly assessing, constantly reassessing, and trying to adapt to create the best situation for people to be healthy and their best. Because if people are healthy, they're going to play their best.
Right.
At least we're pretty sure. So I feel like they've done a really good job keeping tabs on that and trying to make the best adjustments that they can, which is so vitally important, I think, in any industry. The adapt or die kind of slogan. And they've done a good job here.
You're impressed with the whole pitching team that they have? Obviously, there's quite a few coaches.
From day one, I vividly remember the first conversation I had about. It felt like they knew more about me than I knew about me, and that stuck out a lot. And it's been nothing but proof behind the pudding.
Is there any one of the coaches that sticks out as being really, really helpful to you?
Man, I feel like I spent a pretty even amount of time with all of them, which is nice. and they all have their own perspectives on a similar message. So it would honestly kind of be hard to pick, because I feel like it's all good information. It's just it's all based on what I need most, and it's their different perspectives on it. And I love having those different ways to look at something, because they've each helped in very unique ways.
Hey, listen, this is a huge help. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Listen, have a great season.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheering for you. So is my wife. She's a big fan of yours.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That was awesome.
Good
Thanks
for
for
you
letting me
guys.
film that.
Of course.